From visual tributes to one of the most iconic antagonists ever to grace a cinema screen, to cameos that may have more meaning than you initially assumed. These are those bat beats that have often slipped into The Dark Knight Rises' darkness, but will no doubt blind you with their brilliance upon discovery. Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and with it being 10 years since its epic release, here are 20 things you somehow missed in The Dark Knight Rises. Number 20, the Commissioner gets Batman's last word once more. Throughout Nolan's epic series of Batflicks, Bruce Wayne/Batman's relationship with Gary Oldman's Jim Gordon very much acts as one of the key foundations for much of the emotionally charged and routinely mesmerizing set pieces unfolding on the streets of Gotham. And in a rather subtle nod to the bond the Commissioner shares with the Caped Crusader in each of the gripping tales, Nolan actually went out of his way to have Gordon be the last person the Bat converses with before each of his films reaches its conclusion. In Batman Begins, said conversation comes in the form of discussing the arrival of a certain iconic villain who also has a taste for the theatrical. The Dark Knight sees Batman convince his old ally to help forge the lie that will ensure Harvey Dent remains Gotham's White Knight. And sure enough, The Dark Knight Rises depicts the masked vigilante's final words under the cowl of "a hero can be anyone" being uttered to Gordon as the Bruce Wayne penny finally drops. Number 19, Batman repeats a villainous line again. And in another case of Nolan sneakily linking each of his critically acclaimed darlings together under fans' noses, The Dark Knight Rises saw the menacing protagonist once again call back to one of his adversary's penetrating one-liners later down the road. First off, the 2005 first entry saw Bruce frequently being reminded to mind your surroundings by mentor Ra's al Ghul before often being made to pay the price for his impulsiveness. The Bat then brilliantly lets loose his own variation of the line in his climactic throwdown with Liam Neeson's Big Bad on a speeding monorail. The 2008 sequel also involves Batman tragically repeating future Two-Face Harvey Dent's earlier statement of "you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain," as he prepares to take the rap for the fallen White Knight. And the 2012 final showing has the masked icon brutally feed Bane some of his own medicine late in the day, telling Hardy's hulking force that after he's told him where the trigger is, "then you have my permission to die." Magical. Number 18, and yet another villain disguises themselves as one of their henchmen early on. Before ultimately being revealed to have been present on the plane containing nuclear physicist Dr. Leonid Pavel all along, the monstrous Bane blends in with the rest of his League of Shadows henchmen in the lead-up to his thrilling hijacking of said CIA aircraft. This isn't anything new for the Nolan Batverse though, with the Joker pulling off a similar feat in the opening scene of The Dark Knight, hiding himself behind a clown mask and disguising himself during the opening bank robbery. And Batman Begins also gets things underway with Ra's al Ghul pretending to be merely a member of the League of Shadows by the name of Henry Ducard as Bruce is recruited to their ranks. Each villain eventually let their true form be known in the end, of course. But Nolan sure loved the concept of a big reveal, didn't he? Number 17, many a Nolan cameo. It's no secret that the process of crafting these immortal Batflicks was very much a family affair for Christopher Nolan, with the director's brother Jonathan being heavily involved in the creation of the screenplay for each Bat film. But what you may not have been aware of is this family connection also extended into The Dark Knight Rises on-screen drama itself. During the sequence which sees a bunch of children being stuffed in a school bus as Joseph Gordon-Levitt's John Blake attempts to get them to safety, none other than Nolan's son Rory can be seen in a window at one point. Nolan's cousin Miranda also stops by to gossip about Bruce Wayne as a maid early on in the feature, while his uncle John gets in on the action as Wayne Enterprises board member Douglas Friedrichs too, reprising the role from Batman Begins. Number 16, Bane's knitting hobby homage. Ever wonder why the unsettling beast that is Hardy's Bane can often be found passing the time with a spell of casual knitting throughout The Dark Knight Rises? In all honesty, the character detail itself was largely overlooked by many upon their first viewings of the trilogy's conclusion, but Bane is definitely threading the needle in many a scene. But why? Well, in what acted as one of the many Rises nods to Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities tale, this act is actually Bane's way of tipping his mask to that story's villain, Madame Defarge, another entity who enjoyed a spell of knitting. Number 15, Selina Kyle gets her pearls. Very early on in this Dark Knight sequel, set 8 years after the events of that 2008 masterpiece, audiences were introduced to a morally grey cat burglar hell-bent on stealing our hearts, and a set of lovely pearls to boot. And while Selina Kyle would end up losing possession of Bruce Wayne's mother Martha's pearls as Rises would unfold, that wasn't actually the last time the gorgeous jewelry made its presence known in the threequel. With the film reaching its satisfying end, Bruce catches the eye of old pal and butler Alfred Pennyworth after being presumed dead in the aftermath of his saving of Gotham. It's here where Kyle can also be spotted sitting opposite her lover, all while sporting, you guessed it, the beautiful necklace that once belonged to Bruce's mom, and one that Kyle had been desperately trying to get her hands on for the entire runtime. Number 14, Tom Hardy towers over a towering cast. Make no mistake about it. When given the time to prepare, Tom Hardy can morph himself into one of the most physically impressive specimens you're ever likely to lay your mortal eyes on. But despite once again hulking up for his portrayal of the freakishly stacked Bane in this third Nolan Bat entry, there was one physical aspect of the character Hardy simply could not control alone. With the British sensation only coming in at 5 foot 9 inches tall, the idea of the League of Shadows figure towering over the rest of his castmates, in order to represent Batman's biggest physical obstacle to date, had to rely on some movie magic assistance. In order to get around the fact Hardy was somewhat smaller than the likes of Christian Bale and Morgan Freeman, the actor was given a pair of 3-inch lifts whenever donning his Bane getup. Hey, if it works for me, it works for Bane. Moving on. Number 13, Dr. Crane makes hay. Rounding off his time as part of Gotham's criminal underbelly, Cillian Murphy once again stepped into Dr. Jonathan Crane's shoes for yet another rather enjoyable extended cameo in The Dark Knight Rises. The Scarecrow this time found himself savagely trialing Gotham's elite, offering them the ultimatum of exile or death as he perched up high. Amidst the roars of the court and Murphy clearly having the time of his damn life, however, was a little visual detail that many initially missed in this re-emergence. After being freed from Blackgate Prison by Bane, Crane appears to have gotten his hands on, or even fashioned a blazer that sported what seemed to be feathers bursting from its shoulders. You know, sort of like how hay can often be found bursting from the seams of a scarecrow. How cute. Number 12, Bruce's dog scar is still noticeable. And keeping with Nolan's favorite Scarecrow, his Dark Knight cameo appearance involving Dr. Crane and the Chechen acting as a pain in the bat buttocks for the Caped Crusader one film earlier is actually subtly alluded to in the 2012 follow-up. As you'll likely remember, said opening stages of The Dark Knight saw Bale's bat being viciously attacked by dogs, an occurrence that leads to some upgrades to his iconic armor later down the road. But said alterations still couldn't change the fact that these big pups more than left a mark on the bat, with a very much visual scar being spotted on his left arm in The Dark Knight Rises, as Wayne prepares to get back out into the world. Number 11, What's in a Mask? But before the Bat was truly ready to step back into the shadows after 8 years on the sidelines, Bale's Bruce opted to stop by a certain masquerade charity ball that was, unbeknownst to Wayne, being thrown by Marion Cotillard's Miranda Tate. It's here, during his quest to retrieve his mother's pearls from Selina Kyle, that a rather notable detail is seen hiding in plain sight. While just about everyone else in attendance is hiding their true identity with a literal mask, Wayne isn't seen sporting one at all. This reflects the idea that billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne is merely a mask the Batman wears to hide his true self, with Tate's willingness to reveal her face in the sequence also hinting at that moniker merely being a cover-up for her real identity of Talia al Ghul too. Number 10, Tom Hardy's penchant for improvisation. Stunning improvisation is nothing new in Nolan's spin on all things Dark Knight. And in yet another inspired piece of following an impulse, one of Bane's most memorable muffled utterances over the course of this chaotic 165-minute monster movie was actually thought up entirely on the spot by Tom Hardy himself. Coming during the moment that saw the fur-coated Titan taking in the lovely warbles of an innocent child before he completely wrecked a football stadium, Bane's declaring of "that's a lovely, lovely voice" was most definitely not a part of the original script, but Nolan clearly thought it too damn chilling and effective to leave on the cutting room floor, and another highly quotable Bane beat was born. Number 9, Bane gives away the twist early. Keeping with the wrecking machine routinely found butting heads with Bruce throughout, in more ways than one, the chilling sequence that sees the Titanic twosome collide for the first time actually comes equipped with some sneaky foreshadowing as it goes. As Hardy's muscular force of nature unleashes one of the most quotable sections of dialogue the series has to offer upon being thrust into darkness by the Bat, Bane's words of "I didn't see the light until I was already a man" actually allude to what will turn out to be the feature's big twist, with it being suggested for much of the flick that Bane was the child who crawled out of the ominous pit. Said dialogue can actually be interpreted as the masked mercenary not being free of the underground prison until he was a mature man, offering up the first clue that it was in fact Talia who escaped this hell on earth as a kid with his assistance. Number 8, Thomas Lennon's returning Nolan Doctor. Thomas Lennon's character of, you guessed it, Doctor, seen not recommending Bruce Wayne go hella skating in Rises, may have felt a tad familiar for fans of 2000's Memento. Memento. That's because Lennon also took on the role of a doctor in that flick too, a fact that was definitely not lost on the actor himself. With the Memento talent noting later down the road, basically, I guess I kind of think it's the same character from Memento, the doctor who's testing Sammy Jankis in that movie. And while Lennon would also admit that whether or not that's true is probably for Nolan to say, a director as meticulous as Nolan likely doesn't do anything by chance, does he? Number 7. Why so serious, Batman? While Chris Nolan may not have outright referenced the face-painted elephant in the room that was the late great Heath Ledger's captivating Joker in his follow-up to The Dark Knight out of respect for the gone-too-soon star, that's not to say that the director refrained from lacing in absolutely any nods to the iconic clown prince of crime. In the scene that sees Gotham unveil a statue in Batman's honor in light of his apparent demise, the camera slowly pans over the room to reveal what appears to be a rather creepy clown-like smile, thanks to the way the chairs and aforementioned Bat figure were plotted. Simply put, Nolan still found a way to put a smile on the face of this tribute to the Joker's arch-nemesis. Well played. Number 6. Catwoman is not impressed by the cops. The luxury of being able to pause and rewind a film as crammed full of goodness as Nolan's Dark Knight Rises offers up a ton of rewards for those who opt to visit it in the comfort of their own home. One of such gifts comes in the form of the blink and you'll miss it information housed within Selina Kyle's police record during the flick. According to said record seen during Bruce's researching of the cat burglar, Kyle was said to have refused to cooperate with the cops after being arrested, with Catwoman also being noted to have laughed while mocking our uniforms. Heh, it's a tiny detail, yeah, but one that certainly adds that bit more charm to Anne Hathaway's portrayal of the wisecracking feline. Number 5. Miranda Tate's balancing act foreshadows the future. And in another instance of cheeky foreshadowing towards that eventual jaw-dropping twist, of Miranda Tate actually being none other than the daughter of Ra's al Ghul all along, the former once again offered something of a breadcrumb in her gala exchange with Bruce Wayne earlier in the runtime, explaining to the undercover Bat that you have to invest if you want to restore balance to the world. These rather specific words likely set off a few alarm bells for those who'd studied the prior two Bat flicks. Talia's own League of Shadows leader father was also somewhat fond of restoring balance as it goes, explaining to Wayne a few years earlier in Batman Begins that every time a civilization reaches the pinnacle of its decadence, we return to restore the balance. Like father, like daughter and all that, eh? Number 4. A rare daylight Bat appearance. Often relying on the unsettling shadows and floods of darkness in his quest to make Gotham's criminals think twice about breaking the damn law, it's not too hard to see why Nolan rarely unleashed his Bat in the day over the course of his epic trifecta of films. The Dark Knight Rises did actually come equipped with that rarest of sight, however, with Bale's Batman stepping out of the darkness to teach Bane a rather brutal lesson in the closing stages of this war over Gotham's soul. Joining this oddity is the Batman Begins showdown between a Bat-in-training Wayne and Henry Deckard/Ra's al Ghul on top of a sheet of ice. But outside of these brief combat sequences under the sun, Bale's caped crusader was largely left to do most of his highly effective work at night. Number 3. A number of key moments were only added in post-production. Christopher Nolan did everything in his power to keep certain parts of his ever-twisting Rises plot from trickling out to the public beforehand. Among the many secrets brilliantly kept under wraps thanks to the magic of post-production tinkering, Bruce Wayne's name being present on a gravestone late in the Rises day wasn't actually the case when it came time to shoot this particular sequence. Miranda Tate was actually etched on the slab initially and later swapped out for Bruce digitally. And John Blake's name being finally revealed as Robin wasn't actually an on-set development either, with that line only being recorded in a studio and laced into the flick later down the road. Number 2. Catwoman's familiar fingerprints. Jumping back to the deluge of tantalizing details offered up during Bruce Wayne's delving into Selina Kyle's background, another rather curious piece of information can be spotted flashing up on the Bat monitor. The fingerprints Catwoman is revealed to have been wearing earlier in the flick turn out to be none other than a criminal known as Nikolai Ondrejko's. And if that name rings a few bells, well, that's because the latter part of the moniker was actually previously used by another Bat villain in The Dark Knight. In the obituary the Joker writes for the mayor in that 2008 flick, the name Ondrejko can once again be spotted, with that reference being said to have been a tip of the cap to Joe Ondrejko, who just so happened to be the construction coordinator on both films boasting the Dark Knight title. Number 1. Batman learns from his icy mistakes. The Bruce Wayne fancy driving Gotham out of the darkness in The Dark Knight Rises feels a world away from the reckless and brassed-off League of Shadows member in training trying to keep his head above water in Batman Begins. And this was brilliantly alluded to in the moment Batman finally returns to his city in the trilogy's finale, with the Dark Knight confidently striding across the ice towards Commissioner Gordon and his crew as he sets the war against Bane into motion. 2 films earlier when trying to best his mentor Henry Ducard/Ra's al Ghul on a similarly thin sheet of ice. Bruce infamously found himself tumbling through the frozen floor thanks to his impulsive decision to sacrifice his footing for a killing stroke. This time around, however, Wayne was the embodiment of composed atop the ice, as his vital lessons learned in the pit and renewed confidence in his abilities not only kept him from literally going under, as many others had when sentenced to a chilling exile, but buoyed him in his quest to save Gotham too. How's that for bookending? And that's our list of any other things people missed in The Dark Knight Rises. Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're there. Also, if this kind of thing is your bat bag, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on, and I would know because guess who wrote it? Haha! I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for clicking on this video today. Hopefully I'll see you very, very soon, but in the meantime, be good to yourself. Bye bye!